Welcome to the second episode of how my first paycheck in Canada told me Canada isn't for me and why I left for Nigeria. After some 1 year plus, living in the beautiful province of Quebec was coming to a foreseeable end. Great memories had been built, great work experience attained. Lovely and not so lovely colleagues met. Beautiful tourist places have been visited. Summarily, good loving events to reminisce had been formed around the Boulevard Shevchenko, place of abode. Welcome to Kenny's page, personal documentaries around the globe. The decision to move to an English-speaking region of Canada had come to stay. Meanwhile, the big elephant in the room was how much of these two provinces of choice, Ontario and Alberta, did we know to make a decision on. Anyway, we were able to knock off Alberta easily because of its distance to us. While Alberta is some 36 hours or more drive away, we settled for Ontario province. From the capital city of Ottawa, of 4 hours away, up onto Toronto, Kitchener, Windsor, of some 10 to 17 hours away. Far better and closer than Alberta. No doubt, the core Toronto is one of the costliest cities to live in the world and may not be suitable for low-income earners. For context, Toronto may be considered as the Lekki of Lagos, the New York of the US, or the London of England. Anyway, Toronto province became more like it, more like the choice. After the choice was affirmed, I began submitting applications online for jobs around other towns and cities in Ontario, but away from Toronto. I attended some interviews and got some job offers in Ottawa, the capital city of Canada, just 4 hours away. After passing the interview, job offers received, I turned down those offers. I never showed up. The jobs were not beating my current engagement. Some days after, I came across a bank job advert in London, Ontario, some 12 to 15 hours drive away. The giant financial institution is one of the most popular banks in Canada. Good brand to work with. I was determined to give the interview process my best shot. I applied and was invited first for a screening online interview. I passed. Then time came to attend the physical stage of interview. The location, as said, London, Ontario. London, Ontario goes by its compounded name to avoid confusing it with the popular London city of the UK. Anyway, 15 hours journey wasn't going to be easy. What if I didn't pass? Why not relocate first before looking for jobs? These were some silent inner voices playing tennis, free tennis in my head. Obviously, the inner voice spirit wasn't so familiar with my person. I wouldn't give any excuse. I took 3 days leave from work. I booked a Greyhound bus and made it a night journey. We took off around 7 p.m. from Montreal and we got to London, Ontario around 9:30 a.m. the following day. My interview was at 10 a.m. I got into a taxi, headed straight to the bank interview office. No time to shower. I only brushed at the bank's restroom, combed my hair, and rearranged my heavy-looking face. Anyway, entering the vast hall located somewhere around 7th floor of the building, I was shocked to see different interview sessions and tables, holding with a plethora of applicants, sitting and standing. It was a massive recruitment to diverse branches across the town. With many answers flying into our hearing unsolicitedly, a whole lot of "we will get back to you" response was accompanying the end of each session from different tables. My heart kept skipping at faster pace. Interview na your mate. Canada no be your papa mate, one of my friends will always say. Finally my turn. I breathed. I smiled. I jacked up my suit. With a slightly expressionless face, I walked up to my table, greeted and sat when they asked me to. Lots of questions were asked. Caricature scenarios were played out. Skills were queried. Simplicity, it was a rigorous interview of some sort. Detailed to the core, fire for fire. Nobody did agree for anybody. In the end, the interview result was not only a mere success, but the unhidden enthusiasm on the part of the hiring managers to hire me was joyfully expressed there and then, and my head began to swell. Despite the crowd that had besieged the interview sessions, each of the 3 hiring managers said they wanted me in each of their team. I was so lucky. After thanking them, I informed them of my present location, some 15 hours journeying away, wherein I had been traveling since last night, and how it might be difficult for me to come back again for yet another physical interview, as they had requested. You traveled down from Montreal this morning? Wow, they all yelled. Remember, the world was not so much of hybrid at this time. No COVID was in town yet. The hiring team were going to bend the rule for me anyway, by having me speak with the manager over the phone, the last stage of the interview. Some sort of protocol, you may want to call it. This was done in the end, and I was hired. The pay was 19 Canadian dollar, 19.50 actually per hour, a bank customer service position with prospects of growth and branch transfers. I was finally settled, or so I thought. My wife started throwing her CV around as well at the same location of London, Ontario. Luckily, she secured the job with an affiliate of her current employer. Finally, we were getting there. And even the kids would be in for a proper schooling. Also, we thought. The day came in January of 2019. At the peak of the winter, we were moving to London, Ontario. My wife was ready. The kids were willing. Also ready was my rugged Chevrolet car, bought some 5 months earlier after passing my driving test on the 5th attempt. A story for another day. We set out early on the day. I was to drive some 12 to 13 hours to our destination, London, Ontario. Around 8 p.m., I had driven some 10 hours stretch. We were approaching the popular Toronto. Our Canadian people will call it Toronto. Anyway, while driving at night, penetrating the shiny star-studded city of Toronto, I mean, when I set my eyes on the city center of this almighty Toronto, right from the drive-through flyover, overseeing the wonders and wonderlands of how much mightily placed infrastructures were made to beautify a human-dwelling arena, I saw why Canada is so-called Canada. With constantly unrepentant blinks of illuminating lightnings striking from all different corners of this purposefully built city, the lip doors of my mouth were left ajar, even on the wheel, in total amazement. What a wonder, what a life, what a beauty. Mind you, I wasn't new to the Western world. I had seen some astonishing beauty in Houston, Texas of the US. I was just from the paragon of quiet beautification in Montreal. I had even lived in the modern city of Dubai a few years earlier. Story for another day as well. But seeing Toronto tonight, I was lost yet again in another paradise on earth. My wife and I in the car could not but scream in appreciation of what a government in this world has done for its people. We knew instantly that Canada's image, commanding a global recognition, was never a coincidence. It was deliberate. Indeed, as the old saying goes, see Paris and die, see Toronto and truly die. There is no doubt that Canada in general is a beautiful country, in and out. Where do I even begin to enumerate the astonishing beauty of this splendiferous federation? Anyway, back to the story. We continued our journey to Brampton area of Ontario, barely an hour drive from the core Toronto, where we passed the night at a family friend's place, the far where you miss. A good friend from my day one at Great Ife. The following morning, as we landed in London, Ontario, we went straight for the new house keys we were going to rent. While I went for the bank interview, I had used same stone to kill another bird. I had prior seen a house online, put a call through, and inspected the house after my apparent successful interview on that same day. 2 days later, I went to the bank and the new job training commenced. However, a new wahala was brewing. My early experience in the bank for the first 2 months training recorded how I went from one of the best hired candidates to the least coping, most unresponsive, and the quietest person in the training room. I couldn't just understand the majority of the training. New location, new lessons, new challenges. As the only black guy in the training room, I would struggle to comprehend the London type of English accent, the London, Ontario type of English accent, I mean. Totally different from the Montreal's. Which kind of wahala be this? In Montreal, I could understand my trainers and managers, and they could understand me as well. But here, it's a different story. The only time I witnessed language barrier in Montreal was with customers over the phone, not with the managers. But here in London, my direct training manager would have a third party, an interpreter, a Nigerian Canadian though, to reinterpret our personal one-on-one meetings. She said to me that whenever I spoke, she won't grasp fully. Would you blame her? I had responded to her that the feeling is mutual. Whenever she spoke, I never understood all her uttering, at least not 100%. Even when majority of them spoke as well, I wouldn't comprehend fully, depending on the pace at which the speaker is communicating. Now you see why I easily clung onto the title, the quietest guy in the class. I wasn't quiet, I was clueless. And I was alone in this shoe. This quietness is born out of frustration, I must say. My lips remained shut. The lessons on the banking products and apps were fully new to me. The banking apps and the practices were sounding like some astronomical calculus of the y the x. Personally, my ears aren't that opened to foreign accents, which is why I don't go for American action movies. Partially because it was Father Yoloro and the like that I grew up knowing how to read the region of Elekuro Ibadan. I'm always proud of my origin, regardless. No one to tell my own. Who would even believe me? A 2-1 BSc of Ife. Anyway, language barrier, accent barrier is one of the most underrated barriers ever discussed. But I endured them. It will take me extra time to start learning the ropes of the computer banking applications, the banking websites. Like every tortoise, slowly but steadily, I was getting there. Though my accent will not change and the telephone insults continue to pour in as expected once in a while, I emphasized on a major skill I spotted in me, the sales skill. While the majority of my colleagues were not so pushy about selling banking products, this was my main point of attention. In no time, I was winning the best sales team member of the month, and concurrently, I kept winning. I was winning on opening new accounts, selling loans, getting new credit cards. I was always selling. So you would abuse me after all, but by waiting at the sale. Again, I became one of the best in the team. My manager will always praise me and my efforts at sales. I was pushing on. But again, I was getting exhausted somewhere along the journey. Prior to relocation to London, Ontario, the single battle for newbies abroad beyond other mentioned ones above had been roaring in silence. The battle of, is this how I will continue? I wouldn't want to continue being on the bottom rung of the ladder. I had always thought I would study further once we were settled. Since my time in Montreal up until now in Ontario, I had applied for master's degree program in some universities in Alberta, Newfoundland, and Nova Scotia. They all came back negative, unadmitted. No specific reason was given. I was applying for MSc in political science following my BSc in same from the almighty Great Ife. Alas, no greatness in the admission decision was received. I was down, unhappy, and unfulfilled. At another time, I had done worse unsolicited, put in for IELTS unsolicited, with careful crafted statement of purpose, all to boost my chances of securing an MSc admission. They were all to no avail. At this time, I said, enough, they say, is enough. How would I then progress in life if I was this denied education with no clear rationale to watch out for in another application? I was to informally learn from some certified immigration consultants that my age was largely the problem, but no one would mention it, as the country would often give greater priority to younger folks. Whether this was true or untrue, I wouldn't know. But at this time, I had lost all hopes in the almighty Canada. It's high time I left Canada. At this time, with job stress, weather stress, mental stress of accent struggles, I had had it full to the brim. My wife and I discussed, and we concluded to explore elsewhere. After all, we got a fatherland, or is it motherland? When I informed my Brampton friend that I had booked our flight to Lagos en route to Toronto Airport, he wouldn't believe I wasn't under some kind of spell. I said, you see me, I'm going back home. You will drive me in your car to the airport, and that is it. No going back. By this time, I had MSc admissions in Leeds Beckett University, University of Coventry, UK, the University in Ukraine, and another one in Lithuania. We were happy to pursue life from yet another perspective. Without informing a single friend in Canada or Nigeria, we headed to the Pearson International Airport in Toronto, and we flew straight to Lagos amidst joy and enthusiasm. One thing that is always certain on the kind of occultic style of life abroad is that when you get your visas, nobody knows. After you have moved abroad, many people will be in the know. While living abroad, only those who are in it together get to know how the journey progresses, the new discoveries, and the abiding challenges. And indeed, when you eventually decide to revert back to your origin, your base, your country, only 1 or 2 persons will get to know about it. The reasons are different. This is how Africa has been shaped, sadly though. That being said, I am only telling my story, my own story. It's not in my place to advise you to emigrate or immigrate or migrate of any sort. No lessons stay stuck beyond that which you personally have gone through. I'll see you on the next ordeal of life.